In this tutorial we're going to look at creating an architectural model from some given dimensions, with the aim of the project being to investigate ways of working accurately in Modo. Through this we're going to look at a number of tools that will help us in the process, for example grid snapping, absolute scale, macros, and probably the most important tool, Modo's work plane, which gives us the ability to reorientate the axis system based on a given selection, which allows us to model things in place and also with accurate alignment. The house that we're going to be modelling is a design classic, the Charles Eames house of 1949. The beauty of the house is the way Eames constructed it from a number of off-the-shelf components, and we're going to attempt to reflect that in the way that we model it. Now, I was unable to source original architectural plans for this building, but we do have some plan drawings and also through research some key dimensions. Now, because we're not working from original plans, some dimensions may be inaccurate, but through the tutorial we'll be working accurately from dimensions that I have calculated based on the key dimensions of the building. The great thing about the Eames house is it allows us to tackle many different aspects of ArchViz modelling, from creating a building skeleton to interior and also exterior detailing. It's a short project and a fairly simple building, but a great subject for giving you an insight into how to use Modo in this area of 3D modelling. I'd also like to thank architect Adam Elstein for all his help and advice while researching this project. So before we start modelling, there are a few changes I need to make to system preferences. So we go to System Preferences. First of all, you go to Accuracy. Now, all of the dimensions for this model are in feet and inches. I'm going to change the unit system to English. And if you come down to Tool Handles, I'm going to change the draw style from Basic to Advanced. And that will allow us to see dimensions as we're hauling or creating geometry. So we're going to start by modelling the framework of the building, and I've got a reference image for you to use here. So if you go to your image directory, you should find a JPEG in there called Framework. Open that up, and we'll bring that up into Preview. So you can see from this drawing how the frame of the building is structured. So we have a column that comes up to the ceiling. That's attached to a joist that goes across the roof, and above that we have the various roof materials. So what we're going to do when we're building this framework is try and follow the construction of this framework as closely as possible. So I'm going to start by modelling the cross-section of this column. Now I know from the diagram here that it's 4 inches square, and the width of the metal is ½ inch. So if I go to my top view, I'm going to zoom in until my grid display goes to 1/4 inch, 0.25. So now I know that that area there is 4 inches square. So I'm going to run a grid snap, also the polygon tool, the pen tool, sorry, and we'll trace out the cross section. Now I know that the height of the column, the height of the ceiling, is 17 feet, so I can just select that, the X key for polygon extrude, and we'll bring that up on the Y, 17 feet. Now I want to model everything in position, so the next thing I'm going to do is model the floor. So I'm going to hit Escape to clear the snapping. Let's go to a new mesh item, and with the cube tool I'm just going to drag out a rectangle. Now I'm just going to type in the dimensions. So on the X I know that it's 17 feet, and on the Z it's 52 feet, and then I'll just center it all. Drop the tool, and now I can get that column into the far corner. So if I go back to the layer with the column in, I'm going to run Snaps and Precision, drag snap rigid, and I'm going to click on the bottom of that column, and we'll drag that over into the corner. It should pop into place. So next we can model this plate that attaches the joist to the column. So I'm just going to lasso the polygon at the top of the column, Shift A to auto fit, and then I'm going to go to my top view, and your grid should still be 0.25. So let's move over slightly, run my grid snap again, and also the polygon pen tool. So you need to adjust your viewport so you can see 10 inches across. So with the pen tool, I'm going to come down 3, click there, come across 10, and then come down 2 to make it 1/2 inch thick. And we'll trace that out. So drop the tool, I'm going to get rid of my grid snap. Go to wireframe view, and then in vertices mode, I'm just going to select these 2 points here and hit the B key just to create a nice little curve. So if you come to the perspective view, you can see that that profile shape isn't aligned to the top of the column. So to do that, select the polygon at the top of the column, go to work plane, align work plane to selection, then select the profile, and then come to center selected on the Y, and then reset the work plane. So select that polygon again, hit the X key, polygon extrude, bring it down, and we want to bring it down minus 11.5 inches. Now putting that curve in the corner has affected the smoothing. As you can see there, it's looking quite rounded. So what we can do just to fix that, go to mesh edit, edge slice, and we'll just bring an edge from the top to there. Hold down shift, and we'll do the same this side. And we'll also do it in here. Now a nice feature to put in are these 3 bolts that are holding the joist to the column. So we'll run the cylinder tool, just drag it out, make sure you've got 5 sides and 1 segment, and we want the radius to be 1/2 inch. And then we'll just bring this back through the other geometry, place it in there like that. Select it, now we go to duplicate clone, and we want there to be 2 clones. Bring that up to about there. So now we can mirror this assembly, so we'll go to an origin action center, duplicate and mirror. And then we can start creating the joist. So I'll go to my front view, run the cube tool, drag out a polygon. I want it to be zeroed on the X. I want the X dimension to be 15 feet and 8 inches. And I want the Y dimension to be 12 inches. So next we need to align this polygon. So I'm going to select polygon right at the back of the column, align work plane to selection, and select that polygon, center selected on the Y. Then select the back of the plate, align work plane to selection, select this polygon again, and then center select it on the X. That'll just center it that way. So reset the work plane, select the polygon, hit the X key for polygon extrude, and we're going to extrude it 3 inches. So at the moment this is a solid piece and we need it to be 2 thin pieces. So I'm going to select 2 polygons, Alt-C for loop slice, have the count at 2 as 2 and the mode as symmetry, and just put 2 loops in there. Doesn't matter where at the moment. Drop the tool and select 2 polygons in the middle, hit the L key to select loop, then we'll go to snaps and precision, absolute scaling, hit grab size, and I can tell here that the Y dimension of that selection is 6 inches, and I want it to be 11. So I'll just type 11 in, hit return, and then hit explicit scale. Get rid of absolute scaling, and then hit delete. And now I can just fill the holes. So we go to edge mode, double click on that loop, hit the P key, and do the same at the top. Next we can create this zigzag support for the joists. So I'm going to create a cylinder that is 0.5 inches on both the Y and the Z. Let's go to my front view. Just move this over, then with axis rotate, I'm going to rotate it 65 degrees. I'm going to go to a selection action center, hit the R key for the scale tool, and we'll just scale this down so it fits inside the joist. Now we can move it over so it's roughly in the middle. And now we need to mirror it. So I'm going to duplicate and mirror. So before I do that, I'll get rid of my selection action center and then mirror. And we'll put it roughly about there. I'm going to select polygons at the top. I'm going to run the bridge tool. Make sure you have the Modo's curve. When you run the bridge tool, it should just touch. Let's put another one in there. So it'll just touch the top of the joist. Okay, let's move that over to there, and then run the clone tool. Let's move it over the same distance, about there, and then increase the number of clones to 15. And now you need to go through the bottom polygons, bridging them. So when you've done that, we can just tidy things up now. So I'm going to select that end polygon, go to a selection action center, and we'll just move that up a bit. And we'll do the same on the other side. And I'm going to select that whole section. I'm going to center it on the X, and I'm just going to scale it slightly on the X, say 98%. And now we need to align it. So I'm going to select that polygon, align work plane to selection, center selected on the Z. Then we'll select that polygon, align work plane to selection, center selected on the X. So to complete the framework, we just need to clone this assembly. So I'm going to run the clone tool. Make sure your number of clones is set to 8. Click in the viewport, and we need the Z distance to be 6 feet, 5.5 inches. So you can see from the diagram, the roof is made up of a number of different elements. We've got a piece that runs right around the edge, which levels off the joist. And that allows this ferroboard material to be placed above it, which is the ceiling. And then the roof material is on top of that again. So let's start with this piece that runs around the edge. So if we go to the second layer, the floor layer, I'm going to copy that, Control C, go to a new mesh layer, Control V. Hit the W key, and I want to move it up 17 feet on the Y. I'm going to hit the B key for the bevel tool, and I'm going to bevel it in 4 inches. Then delete that central polygon, go to Edge Mode, double click on the outside edge loop, hit the Z key, and we want to bring it down 4 inches. So now we can give this some thickness. So I'm going to run the thicken tool, click in the viewport. I want to give it an offset of 0.25 or quarter of an inch, and make sure you have sharp activated and a smoothing angle of 90 degrees, and that'll create a nice bevel on the side, and also make sure the top surface is completely flat. Now if you notice that we've got some polygons crossing here, and that's because we need to delete out the 2 end joists. So go to the first mesh layer. With my middle mouse button, I'm just going to lasso that joist and hit delete. And on the other end, I'm going to come 1 in, lasso that joist, and hit delete. So to create the ferroboard, select 2 polygons, hit the L key to select loop, and I'll copy that and paste it into a new layer. Now double click on the inside edge loop, hit the P key to create a polygon. Polygon mode, select everything, go to polygon, reduce and merge to create a single polygon. Now we need to dice it up, so we come down to mesh edit, axis slice, have 34 on the X, and then click in the viewport. So then run the B key for the bevel tool, turn off group polygons, click in the viewport, and we want to bring it in ½ inch, shift click to reactivate, and we'll bring it up 2 inches. Double click to select everything, and then hit the F key to flip, and that creates our ferroboard ceiling. So before I move on, I just want to close the edges of this off. So I'm going to double click on the exterior edge loop, the Z key, and we'll bring that up 2½ inches, shift click, and then we'll bring it in slightly. And now we need to do the exterior roof. So I'm in polygon mode, I'm going to go back to the previous layer, select 2 polygons, hit the L key to select loop, and then copy those into another new mesh layer. And then I'm going to run the push tool, which is in the deform tab, and I want to push it by ½ inch. So to complete the roof, we'll just double click on that edge loop, W key, we'll move it up 3 inches, hit the P key to create a polygon, and then we'll just thicken it by ¼ inch. So next we need to create the columns at each end of the house. Now we need to select these 2 columns and make sure that you're selecting the correct side. So we need the positive x-axis. And then I'm going to run the clone tool and make sure you have 2 clones, and the offset needs to be 5 feet and 10 inches. And then we need to rotate each of those around. So I'm just going to use axis rotate and rotate it by 90 degrees, and do that for all 4 of them. So next we just need to seal off this end of the house. So I'm going to come down to the layer which contains the piece that goes all the way around the edge of the frame. Select 2 polygons, hit L to select loop, Control C to copy, go to a new mesh layer, and Control V to paste. W key for the move tool, and we want to move it 6 feet, 5.5 inches. And then just to seal the gap through the ceiling, select that top polygon, B key for the bevel tool, and we'll just bevel that up till it cuts through the ceiling. Now the house is built into the side of a hill, and it's protected by an 8-foot retaining wall at the back. So I'm going to select that edge, Z key, I'm going to bring it up 8 feet, select that polygon, Control X to cut, go to a new mesh layer, and paste it into there, X key, and we'll just extrude it back, and then we'll scale it slightly, and we'll sort out the exact scale when we come to build the environment. Now on the inside of the back wall, it's a huge area of wooden panelling. So again, I'm going to select that edge, the Z key, we're going to bring it up 17 feet, select that polygon, Control X, paste it into a new layer. Now we need to align this to the front of the columns. So select polygon, align work plane to selection, go back into there, center selected on the Y. I'll reset the work plane, and then hit the X key, and I want to extrude it by 1 inch. I'm going to select that polygon. I'm just going to move it just back behind that plate, and on the other end put it back to about the middle of the column. Now there are 4 windows at the back of this wall, so we need to cut some of this away. So I'm going to select 2 polygons, Alt C, count as 1 and the mode as free. We'll put one loop around there. Go to edge mode and that edge loop should be selected. We've got a vertex set position, and on the Y we want it to be 8 feet. So then select 2 polygons that way. Put another loop in, and we want to go along 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll put it roughly there. And then we can select that whole area and hit delete. Actually, if I turn my background shading to wireframe, it'll be easier to see. And we go to edge mode, double click on the edge loop, deselect the 2 end edges, and then go to duplicate and bridge. So to finish it off, we just need to align this polygon. So I'm going to select that polygon on the column, align work plane to selection, go back into this layer, select that polygon, center selected on the Y. And then if we go to the other side, the back wall here is a stucco, but we can just recreate that by selecting those 4 polygons, hit the W key, and moving it out 4.5 inches. Now, the last thing I want to make is the first floor. So if I go to the second mesh layer, select that polygon, Control C to copy, and the new mesh layer, Control V to paste. Again, I'll turn my background shade to wireframe. So I want to align this to the 5th column along. So if I go to this layer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, select that polygon, align my work plane to that selection, go back into that layer, edge mode, select that edge, center selected on the Y, reset my work plane, and then we want to move this up 7 feet 10 inches, and then we want to extrude it by 12 inches. So my item list is beginning to become a little unwieldy, so let's make sense of it so it's going to be useful to us in the next video. So I'm going to rename this layer upper floor, I'll rename that layer ground floor, and then I'm going to select everything else and I'm going to cut it into one layer. And I'm going to rename that framework. And we can delete out all the blank mesh items. So in this video we laid out the key dimensions of the building by defining its underlying structure, and we did this very accurately by using a combination of grid snapping and also the work plane. This gives us a solid foundation that we can now reference to create the internal and external details.